Good evening, it's 6:45 and I'll call the September 12th Cedar Springs Public School Board meeting to order. And if everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and if we can have a roll call, please, Secretary Sledge.
Yes, trustee Bowser,
She is excused, family vacation.
trustee Rivard,
Here.
trustee Vanderhyde,
Here.
treasurer Gilmore,
Here.
secretary Slager, here, vice president Schaffner,
Here.
president Reed.
Here. Thank you, and we've established a quorum for tonight's meeting. And next, we have the adoption of the agenda, and if I could have a motion for as presented.
So moved.
Support,
Any discussion? Having none, Vice President Schaffner,
Yes.
Secretary Slager,
yes,
Treasurer Gilmore,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderhyde.
Yes.
Trustee Rivard,
Yes.
President Reed, yes, the agenda is adopted as presented, and that brings us to gratitude. Open up to the table for gratitude.
I'm grateful that they're starting up drama again, and I'm also grateful that, let me show off. that my children are in this picture that's behind me. These were both mine. And they tried out today, so I'm grateful for drama coming back.
Is there nerves in your house when you look tryouts? Is it?
Not so much, well, they haven't had time for a lot of nerves either, they're busy kids, so.
Anyone else?
So I was a little late arriving to campus this morning because I had an appointment with Shoreline Orthopedic in Holland. But when I did arrive on campus, I looked down the hill towards Red Hawk and I saw all these little people playing on the new, playing in the new playground area for preschool. And I just thought, this is gonna be a good day. So it was just neat to see and to hear those noises of those kids. So it's a neat space. There's track around the outside and some implements on the inside and some sand areas, so it's gonna be a fun place.
Visual.
It was cool.
Awesome. And we're grateful you're here with us.
Me too.
All right. So we'll move on to, we have our high school representatives, and we have with us tonight, Van. Give us your update. What's going on at the high school?
So right now, student council's main projects are homecoming and the powder puff game. In regards to powder puff, our first practice was yesterday. It was raining, so the senior turnout was about 15 people, but the juniors had about 40, so we're grateful for that. We just submitted our jersey order for powder puff Friday, so we're set on that. The game's gonna be the 28th, so you can get out there. We'd love to see you. For homecoming, we have the location of the dance slated. We just got that confirmed with the building. We are working on ordering the tickets. The fee is cemented as an evening in Europe, and each individual council is working on their hallway decorations at this time. I think that's about it for student council. Any questions?
Has there been an announcement what the location is, or no?
It'll be in the high school cafeteria,
Okay,
as usual. There were plans among the senior council to try and get that changed,
Right.
but because of security issues.
okay.
So our hallway decorating is the same theme?
An evening in Europe,
Okay,
yeah.
got it. Okay, that sounds fun. Yeah,
Anything else?
thank you.
thank you very much.
All right. Moving on to our consent items, I would entertain a motion for as presented.
So,
Support,
Vice President Schaffner,
Yes.
Secretary Slager,
yes,
Treasurer Gilmore,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderhyde,
Yes,
Trustee Rivard,
yes,
President Reed, yes, motion carries. Discussion items for this evening, we're starting off with National FFA Convention and Expo.
So actually, the FFA group is here and I'm gonna invite them to come on up. They'd like to present to you their plans for a trip to Nashville.
All right, so I'm Mr. Willard Brent, and you know me already. I'll let these guys introduce themselves. I'll talk a little, and then I'll let them compare some of their experiences. So,
I'm Gil Jones, Vice President.
I'm Megan Ackenbarger, the junior.
yes, so Reagan's been a blessing for me. It's been very, very helpful. So, as some of you know, in the spring we competed in agronomy and environmental skills, and those teams both took first in the state. So they're headed to represent the state of Michigan and Cedar Springs Public Schools on the big stage for both agronomy and environmental skills and natural resources. So that's the big approval, is to get those guys and gals down there to compete. The rest of our students will be down there for the expo and some of the leadership sessions. And Reagan's never been, but Caleb has been there, so I'll let him talk about some of the leadership things that are available to students, the expo, the tours.
So there's a lot of different things that go on down there. A lot of getting to know new people from all over, all the way from, the people from Alaska there, all the way down to the Virgin Islands, places like that. So it's a good place to get to know people. The Expo Center is a great place to kind of get an idea on career opportunities. Ag, there's colleges all over the place in there. There's a bunch of different businesses telling you all about what you can do for them, different stuff like that. And there's a handful of leadership opportunities, only classes, help you build leadership skills, stuff like that. So it's overall just a great experience for someone to go who knows they want to be into the ag field, and even people who don't, just to give them an idea of what it's like.
And some of the fun things that we do outside of, I call it the relaxation and reward time.
Yeah, there's concerts. There was rodeo last year, and it sounds like this year there might be a hypnotist act.
Yep. So, hypnotist, rodeo, concert, and we'll be traveling to Farrell's Farms, Indiana on Tuesday for the first day of the trip to do a tour on which is Farrell Milk, but Farrell's Farms. So get through that tour. There's a bunch of other handful of options. Eddie Johns is going with us on the sugar trip, so we'll be representing the district with some our and the state of Michigan with the other initiatives around the state. That's the trip. Any questions?
How many students are going, did you say?
Yes, so we originally planned, our prices have gone way up since years past. So we originally had 15 kids going, now we have 13. We dropped 2 kids, but 8 of which are competing.
Did we drop 2 because the prices went up or because they're unable to attend?
Prices were a piece there, but they had, and I had asked them about that, and they said they'll go next year. So it's not and it's not their last year. Okay. So, yeah, that was not the sole reason.
So me not being an agriculturist, I have a few questions that are just kind of general. When you're in the expo, is there like equipment manufacturers there too? Do you get a chance to visit with the John Deere people and
Yep,
those?
John Deere's there, Watts was there last year,
Okay.
a bunch of the bigger, I think Chase was there as well.
Okay.
So,
And then what about, and again, seeds and grain, and is that involved in there as well, those groups?
I believe there was, Nutrient Ag was there, there's a handful. There were some companies there for the vehicle side of it, so Ram was there. And
Oh, really?
Arm's there, Chevy, a lot of natural resources
Right.
stuff as well.
So are they looking at you as potentially being part of their business in the future, or are you looking at them as using them in your future?
Kind of both, kind of getting an idea of where you can go. They're kind of trying to get you to go to them. It's kind of the game. They're trying to get you, they're trying to find out which one is best for you.
Okay.
But it's overall just a great learning experience to see what you could do.
Is there livestock in the building? Okay. I just- No, that sounds great. I mean, I've know that we've gone every year, I think we go through this, and I've never asked those questions, exactly what's going on. I saw a video once at the Expo Center, it looks tremendous.
Well, that's huge.
10, 15,000 people, I don't even know, but
I think they 30,000 nationwide. We're the largest membership for over, forget how many students. We're the largest youth organization in the country.
they're like. Keep it up.
There's a lot of people.
And the world's toughest rodeo.
Yeah.
Is Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Russell Dickerson, Mickey Guyton,
I don't know. Who that is. That's like-
Jimmy Allen, and Lauren Elena, music pilots.
The only three that pay to go to council.
So I never had, I was an FFA my whole career in high school, and I'll say, I never had the opportunity to go to nationals. It was always pretty cool. I went to state every year, and I was amazed at how many vendors and how many people came to those conferences. So I mean, the nationals got to be even bigger, but kind of the way to think about it is, it was once said that if you eat 3 square meals a day, live in a house and wear clothes, then every day you interact with agriculture. So it tends to be a lot bigger than what people tend to think of with agriculture, but it's a very cool experience. I think it's super exciting that there's a chance to take 13 kids down to nationals. So I think that's awesome.
Thanks for going to represent us and learn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right, I don't know if the Costa Rica trip can compete, but we'll see.
Well, there's ziplining, remember?
Oh, yeah. That's
Oh, I have questions about that too.
Don't make you turn your mic off.
So this is the second week for Costa Rica trip.
Nothing, really just any questions?
The Jen can-
I didn't attend the last meeting, so if you go over the whole presentation.
Sounds like they'll be eating a lot of good food and having some really cool experiences.
I would mention my daughters have gone not to Costa Rica, but to the Spain trip with Senior Homes. They both went. They've both been back to Spain a couple times each. It's a tremendous thing just to give those students the opportunity to see something that's a completely different culture than what we understand what it is. So I would hope we're all on board with this.
All right, that's on for action tonight. All right, moving on. Finance report with Monty Sullivan, and I don't know if you can go to.
Everybody loves it.
There you go.
Marty's gonna talk about the financial rodeo.
All right, I'll get started just with a real quick overview of the general fund budget as it currently stands, budget actual, as well as the bond budget spreadsheet. Just something real quick to highlight on the general fund budget to actual. Currently, expenditures are significantly outpacing our revenues. That is a regular occurrence at this point of the year because our first state aid payment will not be received until October, generally around the 20th of the month, when we'll receive our first October state aid payment. So next month when we do this, you will once again see expenditures are significantly greater than what we have reported as revenues. Just wanted to point that out, nothing to be alarmed about. We have plenty of funds in the bank to support our cash flow at this time. Any questions on the general fund?
Thank you for that assurance.
I'm glad that we have enough money in the bank instead of taking out loans.
Yeah. Just a quick peek at the bond budget. You'll notice we have approximately, let me blow this up for you. Of our current projects, we have approximately $13.5 million remaining, based on our cash basis, what we've already paid out compared to the budgets. Right here, the Cedar Trails, we do show a remaining balance of $182,000, but that project is 100% complete, so those are funds that we will not be utilizing for the Cedar Trails project, so that can go back and be reallocated to kind of an unallocated portion of the bond. I point this out, so if you subtract that out, we're at about $13.3 million remaining to be paid out on our current projects. Works out well because we have about $13 million of unspent funds currently. So as I previously mentioned, we will have to go out to the Series 2 sale in the spring to ensure we have adequate cash flow to continue along the project timeline and plan. Did anybody have any questions on the bond budget? I mean, you can see we're getting close to fully wrapping up Cedar View. The high school still has some remaining payments to be made, and then obviously Red Hawk is the one that will be going through next summer. So we still have approximately $7 million remaining on that project.
Can I ask a general question? So in general, you don't have to be specific, if there's things that aren't done, like at the high school or somewhere because it's a supply chain issue, are we holding any retainage?
Yes,
Or
we do have retainage. Yep.
Thank you.
So the retainage is, so that's cash basis, so the retainage is built into that remaining balance. Yes.
Thank you.
What does retainage mean?
You're holding back funds to be sure it gets done.
Okay,
It's generally around 10%. So if they submit a pay application for $100,000, we will pay them 90, and then basically account for that 10% as we know we owe that to you. We'll pay that remaining 10% when the project is complete. Kind of holding their feet to the fire so they don't walk away from a project with $200,000. That's their.
gotcha. Thank you.
Last week, the auditors were out doing their field work. I will provide an update on how that went at our next board meeting, a status update. They may or may not be ready to issue the financial statements at that point, but I'll provide an update as where everything stands. I do want to take a quick moment to express my gratitude to the business office team. Last week, I came down with COVID on Monday, so Monday afternoon, I sent the team saying, hey, audit's tomorrow, I'm not gonna be here. And Natalie and Barb and Cammie and the whole team did a really great job stepping up and making sure the auditors had everything that they needed to continue doing their field work and keeping things moving. So thank you, Barb and the business office team. So. I wanted to give you a quick snapshot of where enrollment currently stands. Back in June, I projected that we would be down 50 FTEs. Currently, it looks like we are closer to 80 FTEs. The difference, the 30 can be almost 100% accounted for related to kindergarten enrollment and our ECSC enrollments. And then there's quite a bit of moving between the grade levels as well, but as far as drops and adds for enrollment. But right now it's looking like our net decrease is 80 FTEs. We won't know for sure what that number is until we get through the October count, which is scheduled for October 5th. And then once there's the count date, then there's a few weeks of follow-up counts and state audit before we get that FTE count. So, but I just wanted to make sure we kept you up to date on where we currently stand.
Appreciate that.
And that kindergarten number is always the tough one to predict. And unfortunately, the birth rates in Kent County are on the decline. So it'll be interesting to hear what our neighboring districts are experiencing as well. And I should be able to have those conversations in the next couple of weeks, so we'll be able to report back out to you at our next meeting in October.
So that's maybe not the most positive news, but positive news is state aid funding is at historic levels currently. Last year it was 17 billion total. This year, the state funding portion is 17.1 billion. There's an additional 2.5 billion federal funds. So we are just shy of $20 billion for state aid funding for this fiscal year. Significant investment in K-12 education. Some of the things I wanted to point out to you, some of the new funding sections that will be available to us are section 31AA, the per pupil mental health grant. So this is a grant that we will be able to apply for things such as we recently hired a new school nurse. We could allocate her salary to this grant and apply for that. The Red Hawk Care Student Assistant Program that Stacy discussed at the last board meeting. That is something that we could cover with these 31AA funds. And then we also have the section 31O grant or state aid that it's a 3-year program. Last year we received 100% of the salary and benefits for certain individuals. During year 2 now, we'll receive 66%, and then year 3 we receive 33%. We could use this 31A to offset that remaining balance for those individuals. So those are some things we will be putting together, submitting a proposal to the state to get some of this 31AA funding. Based on the House Fiscal Agency's estimate, we are eligible for approximately $351,000. Another new grant or section 97A and B related to school safety. This is another one that we will have to apply for. It's not necessarily, I believe section 97A is not necessarily new, but it usually capped at a certain amount. This year the caps are higher, so we'll be able to apply for additional funding if we see fit. There's also a section 97B related to school resource officers. We currently employ 1 school resource officer. This would cover 50% of the cost, but they're still looking into whether or not it has to be a new position. So there's still some lack of clarity whether or not we could say, we have Officer Ryan Rowe on site. We want to apply for 50% of his cost, or if we have to bring on another SRO. So those are just a couple of the new state aid sections I wanted to highlight, things that we'll be working on in the next month or so to get applications out to the state.
I have a question.
Yes.
When we first hired an SRO, it was that the district was paying half the salary and the police department was paying half the salary. Is that still what's happening? Or are we paying 100% of the salary?
I don't believe we're paying 100% of his costs based on what we're being invoiced. It wouldn't cover 100% of his costs. I'd have to look at that agreement though.
Yeah, I actually met with the sheriff's or several members of the sheriff's department on Friday morning, and we talked about other districts are looking to add more SROs, and yeah, they were really highlighting the cost of the positions versus the cost of, do you really just need extra officers to help support your extracurricular programs? And they were sharing that it may actually be cheaper for districts rather than hire another SRO to just use their reserve officers to help support some of the extracurricular programs. But they didn't mention the specifics of that, of the arrangement.
Yeah, and the webinar I watched, Friday related to some of these new state aid sections, the MDE still isn't 100% clear on all of the rules that are related to section 87B. What it can be used for, are there any creative, can we apply for some of the recent source, reserve officers versus hiring? Does anyone have any questions?
Just a question about the process, and maybe you don't even know. So section 97B is a new section that may or may not provide 50% of the current or new. That's so that's written by our state government, this section, and then Michigan Department of Education goes in on behalf of all of the state of Michigan and tries to get clarification on the sections of the bill that are unclear.
Yes, so they're charged with implementing the program based on their interpretation of what the legislators wanted.
Okay.
So
So it may or may not be clearly written in the legislation. A lot of questions come up as soon as the legislation is passed, and then all the details have to be worked out after the fact. That's why our government is so efficient.
there,
Okay.
always follow up to good intentions.
Thank you. I just wanted to know how the process. Oh, that's right. We're on that team.
Any other questions?
I'd like to go backwards and just say a gratitude for all the resource officers or the reserve officers that are out there in our community that are contributing personal time and personal risk to make our community safer and give us those opportunities at those sporting events and different things. I know I'm out of order by saying out of order.
Thank you, Marty. You're more interesting than an MDE memo. Thanks very much.
I don't know if that's.
No, he is more interesting. It's better hearing it from him than we could tell.
Very true.
Yeah. You look at it. Okay, all right, discussion item D, bond construction update with Russell Bray and Scott Smith.
So it's just the Scott show. Going solo tonight. The bulk of our focus right now is on finishing the work that we've been doing in the different buildings. Progress continues to be made. We still have contractors on site daily. The big things that we're still wrestling with are the availability of equipment, and then specialized installers and specialized experts in the field. So for example, on our electronic lock systems and our PA systems and the regular locking systems. We opened the high school, for example, and we had all these new doors with all these new cores for the locks. Well, we don't have a locksmith on staff to key all those cores in such a way that there's a logical progression of key utilization. And so, it's little things like that that are stumbling blocks for us right now. We know those are the most important things. Safety and security is the most important thing across the district. And so we're continuing to chip away and make progress on that. I did share, I gave a quick update in terms of the rapid response to the roof at the auditorium. The GMB team has gone around and done another survey of all of the district roofs, and we met today. They presented us with an overview of each building, each roof, and basically graded things out A through E, E being the most highest in need of attention or immediate attention. And so we've gone through and, we'll be using a variety of funding sources to, engage in those immediate areas in need. But then we've also created some timelines for future roof replacement as we go. So the biggest one that they found alarm with, they had concern over was the auditorium roof. And they were seeing indicators that were leading them to believe that a big storm or a big wind could result in a tearaway like we had in the gym and like we had on the academic wings last spring. And so in order to try and alleviate that or avoid that, the vendor has materials. They were able to secure materials to do the work, and they've got crews that can come in and do it. So we're going to move forward with the auditorium roof immediately. So it'll be a big project, but they're confident that barring any heavy rains like we had over the weekend, that it's something they should be able to get done in 4 to 5 weeks. They'll work during the day so that our students will be able to be in the space in the evenings and afternoons. But we won't want students in the auditorium during the day when there are contractors overhead, working, just for safety. The other big piece is where we're kind of going backwards to that design phase of things and starting to look at some different design concepts for Beach Elementary School. And so we hope to have some drawings and some things for you to look at and consider coming up in October. But one hint will be that it will likely be a 2-story project. And the reason for that is we're really tight on the space because we've got some watershed, some drainage elements to the south of the building. And then we have the existing building to the north of where we want to build. We can't take that down until we have the new section completed. And so it's a neat concept where I'm excited to see how where they're headed with that. So those are the 2 updates. Are there any questions or wonders?
I got a question about the roof. There was a risk potential if we had a wind. Was that because of damage that was done from a storm that could be claimable by insurance, or was it just the fact that the product's failing prematurely? Do we know what the cause of that
That's
might
a
be?
great question. They didn't come up with any causal factors.
I didn't know if we thought it was damaged, but not damage to the point of blow off, if any of that was claimable, if that would be financially responsible for us to think about it that way, or if the dollar amount was below a deductible where it didn't make sense.
Yeah, no, that's something we can definitely check in.
Do we have students in our buildings at all having to listen to hammers and drills and air compressors while they're running?
They're very mindful of noise, and I'm not, none of that's been reported to them. They really try to isolate, and if there are larger equipment noise generating activities, they do those after school, evenings, or on the weekends. So not that I'm aware of. That's a question that I got from many parents, particularly at Red Hawk, because that's going to be an active construction zone while we have students in this space. I know as a principal, it was remarkable when my building was undergoing construction that that there was work happening because of the regular changes, but you didn't necessarily see it and you didn't necessarily hear it. It was kind of like things happen behind the curtain and then they pull back the curtain and voila.
Thank you. All right, moving on to discussion item E, the high school handbook revisions. And Scott, show again.
So I'm here. Todd Simmons, Principal Todd Simmons is also here in case you have any questions that I can't answer, but I met with Eddie Johns late in the week last week with the short weeks, the first week of school, the pre-Labor Day week, the post-Labor Day week. We were not able to get you the clean copy and the red line copy side by side. And so we didn't want to push it, and didn't want to rush and do a last minute add to the agenda, but there, when Eddie had presented back in, August, he had talked about there were a couple things that they were looking at considering, as far as making changes. They pulled those off the table. The only, two changes of significance, for the handbook, for the 22-23 school year compared to the 21-22 school years, going to be the closed nature of the campus. And then also students will be permitted to wear hats unless there's an exception brought forth by an individual teacher. So is that?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay. So you'll get a clean copy, a red line copy in October, and hopefully we'll have the clarity that will give us a chance to move forward.
Can you define what an exception brought forward by a specific teacher means?
Mr. Simmons?
Yes, sir. Something that it causes distraction. For example, if that hat had, for instance, an alcohol company on it, or something that just might not be best for our culture or our students.
And our teachers are professionals, so they're able to make that recommendation to you then, or they directly direct it to the student.
Generally, it's been to the student thus far that I've experienced. But yeah, if it needed to go further, we can always talk to Mr. Johns, Mr. Moffett, Mr. Duffy, or myself.
Yeah, or if it was it's an exaggeration, but if it was a 3-foot tall top hat with lights, and that might be a distraction in the academic classroom, but it would be totally acceptable in the hall. So there may be cause in the event that a student is asked to take hat off because it's disruptive to the learning environment.
And when will students be made aware of this? Or are they already aware?
In terms of ability to wear hats.
Yes.
Oh yeah, they're well. They're well aware.
And that's part of the language in the current handbook. The principal can make that exception and permit hats as they would see fit. And so that's, although it's not aligned with the language from last year, it's being done with permission from the principal, which is aligned with the language in the budget.
And if I might add, it wasn't done in an arbitrary fashion, this is something that we collaborated with our student council on quite a bit this summer, while breaking bread, or at the middle school, we also ran through our building leadership team together there, and so it's definitely a shared leadership methodology.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to seeing it. Moving on to discussion item F, return to learn, COVID preparedness and response plan with Jen and Scott.
So it seems a little silly that we would be in the case of reconfirming our return to learn plan since we've not left learning for over a year. But the legislation that allows us to take ESSER funding also requires us to reconfirm this whenever there is a change of CDC guidance or every 6 months. So we're right at that 6-month point, and there was a change to CDC guidance in August. So we're simply just giving a chance for any public comment that might exist for return to learn plans. Really last year, we changed those to say we will do what is required by, the CDC and take the recommendations that they give us, should there be any. And we'll do what we need to do to make sure that students continue learning. So I'm glad to answer any questions. The only thing that will change is that I will add a date to the bottom that it was reconfirmed at this meeting.
You said there was a change by the CDC in the last 6 months?
In August, they updated their guidance, and I don't know the details of that. Hasn't been part of my work. Is that something that?
And they walked it back to even more the last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Miller Johnson came out with a.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have any specifics in our program.
No, it doesn't.
Any other questions? In the area of federal programming, there are times when you seek compliance and there are times when you pursue excellence. And this is definitely one of those where we're compliant with the guidelines.
No questions, we'll move forward. That brings us to public comment, and this would be the time that you can direct any concerns to the board for your 3 minutes. And have we had anyone indicate that they would like to address the board for their 3 minutes?
Not yet.
That's called Rose. Okay, all right, having none, we'll move forward. And we have our lone action item for tonight. We have a Costa Rica trip proposal, and I would entertain a motion for as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? I wish I could say that in Spanish. Okay. Having none, Vice President Schaffman,
Yes.
Secretary Slager,
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderhyde,
Yes.
Trustee Rivard,
Yes.
President Reed, yes. Going to Costa Rica. Communication, the Board of Education. You know everything I know, the upcoming MASB fall retreat. Matt's going to represent. And anything else? You've got your sports, everyone's got their sports passes, we have t-shirts here to pick up. Anything else on the board?
Perfect. I didn't know if Dan wanted to share anything or if Ron wanted to share anything from their director positions.
We have I don't know if I announced this last time, 16 students that they studied part of this semester. Maybe double that.
And their range is like Coopersville to,
Yeah, the Coopersville one did not happen, so it's actually Sparta now, Sheridan, and then Sand Lake to Rockford. Locations. And I did have a meeting with the Downtown Development Authority and Rotarians, looking to get to the chamber. Some more for the middle school and the high school on the Naviance program for career readiness, and just adding some new features and details to that. Hopefully we'll be able to have it where students can actually do their course selections based off from their educational development plans and their career focus, starting in 7th grade. So Naviance is kind of like the planning area. They set forth their plans, make the course selections that'll talk our school and put all the requests each year, annually we look at. And be able to have that real seamless process, and then obviously then our school for their grades and their attendance and our actual class schedule comes to that. So I'm streamlining some, doing some big work with John.
I thought the hiring process would slow down when school started, but it's still turning. Right now, I'm working on finding some long-term subs for some of our interventionists who are going to be out for a couple months. And we had a resignation today from a teacher. So just hasn't stopped yet.
Well, we know you have a process. All right. So planning, our next meeting is August 10th and having, October. Wrong vowel.
Wouldn't it be cool if it was
October 10th.
our next meeting?
Yeah.
It's a year from now.
But after the holiday, so there we go. Okay, so having no business before the board, we will stand adjourned at, on the dot, 7:50.